Hey, Mystery Jeep Shop here. I haven't given an update in quite a while because things got a little slowed down with a storm and some damage. I had to go spend a couple of weeks out west and clean up a road that was no longer a road, it was a creek, or a river actually, complete with waterfalls. And anyway, that's a story for another time. So I have gotten a little done on the Jeep, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through what I've done and what I plan on doing today. So what I've done, it has a belt on it. I'm pretty happy about that. I did exhaust. I'll show off my YouTube welds here. That actually wasn't my weld, that was a previous repair. And then I just kind of ground down some of the ugly boogers. But then that's my weld. And that's my weld. And yeah, I didn't use any nozzle gel, didn't bother cleaning it up at all. I did clean up the inside. The outside, whatever. It's an old Jeep. So this pointed that way, wasn't going to work. I was kind of hoping I could cut it and just rotate it so it was pointing forward, but the flange was so big that it wouldn't clear the motor mount and this pulley bracket. So I cut it off and put a 1 3/4 V-band there and utilized some straight 1 3/4 that I had left over from the last time. I just had a straight stick of it. But last time I did exhaust work on this Jeep, I bought some bends, used all of the bends, but had leftover stick. So I used some straight there and some straight there. All I really had to do was buy one U-bend and then kind of cut it and do a couple of little pie cuts here and there. And then a pie cut down there, and then I reused the flex section way back there. Anyway, exhaust is on. The bolts aren't tight yet. I was short exhaust manifold bolts, so I ended up buying some ARP hardware. It's expensive stuff, and I threw the package away, so I can't tell you the part number, but it was a finer thread than the first bolts that I got. That's really all I could tell you. I can't remember what it was. I think it was actually it was a coarser thread. It was M 1.5 thread per inch. And what does it look like? Is that a 10 millimeter? Yeah, it is. M10 by 1.5 maybe. What's that say? Is that a 1.5? I think that's a 1.5. I don't have my glasses on. Convenient. 1.5 by probably 10, and then the length was somewhere around 30 or 25, I don't know. It came with washers. So anyway, yeah, I put those bolts on. I got some NGK plug wires, got some hoses. These are S10 upper and lower hoses. It's not going to go exactly where it needs to be, but I can cut and shorten that up and put a joiner there to get the top to line up. This is going to be too small, so I'm going to have to use one of these elbows maybe, and this joiner can be also a reducer. And then the lower, sort of similar, it needs to go all the way over here, so I'll have to basically cut it somewhere around here, use a steel elbow, and then join to one of these. The battery. That was the battery. This was a 25E. And it wouldn't fit with that alternator hanging out there. Probably mentioned that in a previous video. So I got a 51R. And now I need to develop a battery hold down system. This is the winch, the little ATV winch circuit breaker. And that wire was now too short because instead of it being crammed up here, I'm going to move it over here. This wire was fine. That one's too short. I've got the wire. I just don't have the proper crimp lugs because it's 6 gauge, 1/4 inch stud. So I ordered those and they should be here next week. Alternator wiring. As far as I can tell, this one is not used. This is the one that would go to the computer. I couldn't really make much sense of the S10 diagrams that I was able to find. So I just kind of researched alternators in general. And this does have, snapped it on there. It does have some labels on it where it says PLFS. So this one's L, this one's F, which F is the diagnosis wire, and then this needs to go through ignition switch through the lamp. But I could probably just put a resistor and touch it here while monitoring the voltage to see if it starts charging, just to confirm. And then once that's confirmed, I can run this to whatever. Let's see, distributor needs to get plugged in. We'll talk about that. I did do some wiring here. The fuel pump is mounted and wired now. So that's the ground. And this goes up to this relay. And then the relay, that's unused. Everything else is wired. And I just got this at the auto parts store. It's an Eaton brand fuse block with a little O-ring on there, so it's kind of splash proof. So cleaning up some of the fuse hackery that I had going on. Cleaned up some of this hackery that I had going on. I still have this hackery going on, so don't worry. It's still a hack job. Cleaned up a little bit of the ground hackery. And I think that's pretty much it. I showed you all the motor mounts before. I have discovered that with this little bracket here, the bolt is up in the firewall, so I'm probably going to have to either try to get a air saw in there to cut it off, or remove the motor mounts, lower the engine, and remove that bracket. Not real excited about that. Another thing that I still need to do is I've got the carb cheater up here, and this is the bypass hose, and it needs to go somewhere. Originally I was thinking, oh, how convenient, there's a port right here, I can just plug it to it. Well, that's the PCB, and the adapter stack that I have here, that the phenolic spacers, just, they're not big enough to, they're not big enough for that. So probably need to remove the intake and then drill and tap this to go under the PCB. I could tee off here, but that is not recommended because then you've got airflow fighting. So I've got to put some more thought into that. I need to plug a water port that's underneath here and use this water port for the water heater. I need a longer hose for that water heater hose. I need a new hose to go there to there. And then I probably need to unthread that and get one port for the air sense. So all of that needs to happen. It's still basically dry. I did pour some oil on the top, and it seemed like it was leaking out of the push rod cover, which I'm not sure why, but I haven't done anything about that. It would be a good idea to probably do that when I take the intake manifold off to, ooh, I could drill and tap that and have that be the bypass. That would be much easier. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. Anyway, if I do pull the intake off, that would be the time to try to reseal that. But I couldn't really tell where the oil was coming from either. So I'm tempted to just pour oil in it, prime the system, and crank it up and see where it leaks. You know, let the problem be obvious, is the point I'm trying to make. I mentioned distributor needs to get stabbed back in there. Also, I'm going to get rid of this melty oil pressure line. I don't even know if it would reach. It probably would, so maybe I will just hook it up for the time being. I've got copper line up there, but to prime the oil system, I've decided I'm going to remove that port that goes to the compression fitting there, and then thread, I think it's an 1/8 inch NPT, so thread in a barb, and then take this guy right here and empty that oil back in here, and take some of this and fill that and pump that into the port that goes into basically the lifter galley, and let that just kind of pump the oil, pressurized oil, around. Hopefully that'll make it to the bearings. And then I will hook up the oil pressure gauge and spin the engine with the fuel pump not powered on until I see fuel pressure or oil pressure. And then once I see oil pressure, kick the fuel pump on and then vroom, all that. And the timing's going to be perfect and, won't leak. So, stuff. I've been doing things the right way. I'm about done with wiring, except I'm now at a point where I've got to do some wiring here. And I think it's pretty simple. I think it's just ground one of these. I don't know which. Got to figure out which it is, which means I probably need to go back in there to look at the HEI module or figure it out from here. One of these gets grounded. I think it's B over here. So with that grounded, this should run locked out timing, which is fine for what I'm doing. And I'll just set the base to whatever, 25. And then maybe even with no fuel, I don't know what that would do. If the timing would still try to spark anything that's in there, I don't know. But anyway, I might have to put this on a momentary switch too, so that I can, when I'm starting it, I can kill the spark, so it'll spin over fast, and then add spark to have it fire off. And then I could actually even give this possibly even more than 25 degrees static timing. But first, I need to ground that and then just set it to like whatever, 15 or 20, where it will start. So that's probably what I'm going to start off with today, first thing. I need to probably get this stuff out of my way. I need some radiator clamps. Got this for battery hold down idea. I've marked it already, and it'll go basically, well, trust me, it goes right there, but centered. And then I'll do another one on the other side, and then weld a little piece, and then maybe weld something down below it, going across the front, and maybe there, and then have it joined, and then it can bolt down to those holes. And then to keep this from going anywhere, I mean, it could probably just sit like that, but I was thinking I've got this other angle. I could just cut off a little chunk of that and put it kind of somewhere around here on the bottom, so the battery can't shift over. It's kind of what I was thinking for the battery hold down. That really isn't a top priority. The coil, really don't want to use this ugly, crusty, old coil. I don't even know how it bolts on. I think it went to a bracket and I threw the bracket away. I'd have to look. So I don't really know if I want to use an S10 coil or not. I don't understand why it has 4 pins. One of those I assume would be for a tack out, and I could probably figure it out, but I'm really leaning towards just sticking a can there. However, the can has this female terminal, which I don't know if I can replace that. And this is obviously a male terminal, so I've got some coil drama I've got to figure out. And then I've got some stainless pipe that I got from Summit. This one it looks like I'm not even going to have to use. It's 1 3/4. I don't know why I bought it, because it doesn't seem to fit any of the hoses. So I don't know. It'll join that stick and go. It'll go in the shed. So these 2 pipes over here, though, will work. That will fit in the top one, and then I can take a little section of this and slice it, and kind of pie slice on both sides, crimp it down, and then just weld that together, and then that'll be my reducer. And then all of these bends will work for the lower, so I can get. It looks like I really only need that 45 bend. That 45 bend there, cut some of those off, weld on a little bead. And then the 45 will take this hose and shoot it straight over. And then I can use the U-bend here, slice it to be a 90 to go into the radiator. Because the radiator has both ports on this side and both ports are the same size and they are 1.5 inches. What do I have up there? Oh, that's Falcon stuff. Okay, so here's my Jeep, yeah. So the radiator is 1.5 inches. No, that's, yeah, 1.5 inches. And then the lower radiator is 1.5 inches. So both are 1.5 inches, and these hoses, maybe I won't even need to use the elbow to go in there. I can use one of these hose elbows and just like cut it there. But we'll see, there's that. I have also been kind of staring at the gas pedal. This contraption, I just don't see any easy way to make it work. There's a couple of ideas. One, bend a whole new rod going up. Another would be figure out a place to bolt that and then have a cable going from that over. But then this whole thing would just have to be bent, and I just don't imagine that going really smooth. So another idea was cut that off and then like just screw in a Delrin piece there and then make a bell crank on a pillow block with, like a Delrin bearing in there, and mount the pillow block to the firewall there. So that way this would kind of, when you press it down, would friction the lever and then it would do that. And then you hook up the throttle cable to the top. That was one idea. And I might still consider doing that, but I have actually purchased 2 universal throttle pedals, very similar to what I have in the Falcon here. This poor thing's been neglected. It steers just horrible. Everything that I've done, it doesn't steer horrible. It steers horrible when you're on a bumpy off-camber road. And I actually think that the issue is more with the cross weight than anything. But, and then I never did put the Monte Carlo bar on, so stuff's probably moving around. But back to what I was saying. So this gas pedal, you can see, it was from Speedway Motors. It was their self-brand. It's got the pillow block right there, the Delrin bushing, and then the arm up there that attaches to the throttle cable and all of that. So I ordered one of those, but in black, and then I also ordered one in just powder-coated steel. That is the spoon instead of the pedal, with no rubber insert. So I've got those 2 things coming. One was cheap from eBay, and I didn't realize that it was like 3 weeks shipping. What's wrong with people? So I went ahead and ordered the one from Speedway. It'll be here Tuesday. Should have known better. Buy a $17 knockoff throttle pedal, or spend $50 and get it in a reasonable time. So that's kind of where I'm at. A lot of little things that I've got to figure out. Oh, and then the PCV. So this one's fine. This one, really needs to go here, but they're 2 completely different sizes. And I have no hose that would fit on there. I don't think I do. I threw away that heater hose. So let's see if that fits. Which I guess this is 3/4. Yeah, so even that's really tight. So I'm gonna have to figure out some way to adapt that to this hose, or replace this elbow with something bigger so I can use that big hose, and figure out what size that is. What is it, 5/8? Like, who knows? But it's bigger than whatever that is. So I've got to figure that out. I also want to get a taller air filter. I've got plenty of hood clearance, obviously. So yeah, why not get a nice big, at least, 3-inch air filter. But for the time being, this will continue to work. And oils, yeah. I need to put that in the transfer case and transmission. I'll probably do that today, if I have any. And as I mentioned, I'll put that back in there and then put that in there. I am probably gonna have to get more of this. And do I have SAE90 on the shelf? Thought I did, yep. Pretty sure that's what this is. Yep, Travelers SAE90, that's what I use. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about a lot of different things. And 60 to 80-year-old Jeep transmission oil is one of those things. A lot of people say that this oil is inadequate. It's a 60-year-old Jeep, and that oil has done okay. According to the odometer, it's only got 40,000 miles on it, but yeah, everything in there is all right. What damaged it more than the oil was the contaminant from the shifter cover gasket being completely just folded over in a corner, and then it just constantly spitting oil out. That did more damage than anything, but the bearings were actually okay. It was just all the thrust washers and stuff were kind of chewed up. Oh, and then that stupid front cluster oil kind of diverter thing, the weld broke on that, so that was scraping on the gears, and so that sent metal through everything. So, yeah. Anyway, so that thing's gone, and yeah, as you can see, there's still some stuff to do here. I still haven't confirmed that when I jam on the brakes and the clutch, that the arms aren't going to contact each other, but if they do, I can fix that easily. And then I'm probably gonna have to add a switch for the distributor, as I mentioned. Choke and throttle cables, they are both too short now. That was the last thing I was gonna talk about. Both too short now. Here's the choke. Yep, it doesn't reach the choke anymore. Here's the throttle. Yeah, it doesn't reach the throttle anymore. I might be able to pull it through, then feed it through this hole and get a little more. Maybe. Who knows? But either way, this is the bracket for that pull throttle cable. Now that I'm going to be doing a gas pedal throttle cable, I need a new bracket. So this one will make a good template. Or maybe I could even just weld something to it right back here and shorten that up and just modify this one so that it'll house both cables. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. So I guess that's going to be the first thing I do is unscrew this, pull it off, and start looking at where, bolt it on there and start looking at where the throttle cable stuff needs to go. I did already bolt that stud on there. So yeah, there's that. I don't really know where to start. Maybe I'll start with that. Maybe I'll mess with the oils. I'm just going to put this away for the time being. There's not much I can do with the coil. Maybe I'll start with the distributor. Because with that in, that will actually seal the engine up. Although that means I have to try to find top dead center. Let's see if... Oh, I can see the rocker. So that's the exhaust rocker. And here's the intake rocker. So finding top dead center is going to be super easy on this. Awesome. So maybe I'll do that. Pull the number one plug out, spin it over, find top dead center, confirm with, that stuff, and then stab the distributor in and figure out the wiring there. Maybe that's where I start. All right, that's my 25-minute ramble. I hope you enjoy it. I'll be back at some point in a week or two or more to hopefully show this thing running and running well and not leaking a bunch of oil.